Welcome back, everybody, to the Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungham. I have my co-host Luke Timmons with me today. We are on episode 8. We have a super exciting episode for you today. We have a local legend here in central Minnesota, Walleye Dan, on the podcast. Going to be a really fun one to you today, and let's dive into it. Luke, how are you doing today?
Doing good. We are doing good. It's sunny. It's going to be 70.
Nice out, finally.
Yeah, it's going to be 70s next weekend, so I'm excited. And then that means turkey season is coming quick. So
Wednesday, we're talking like T-minus 2 days here, and we're kicking off the 2024 turkey season, which is crazy to think that we're already here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I can't wait. Got lots planned, and it's like anything. You sit and wait for months, and then all of a sudden you blink and you're like, crap, I have nothing ready. And it's a week and a half, or when this comes out, 2 days away. So
it's crazy. I'm excited. It's gonna be really fun. I've been spending the last couple of days now trying to schedule out my April and May of who is coming turkey hunting with me, and when we're going. And I'm excited for our trip to the Black Hills. We finally has solidified it, so it's happening.
It's going. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. We're gonna end the saga of not killing one out there. This will be year 4 for me now. So hopefully we can shoot one. I shouldn't say that. Last year, I guess we did shoot one. I didn't shoot one, but we shot one as a group. So that's
Perfect.
A win in my book.
Absolutely.
Nice. Do you have you're just saying before we jumped on here, you locked in some new ground?
Yeah. Yep. Locked in some new ground. So it'll be fun. It's always fun when you get a new piece of land, because it's tough though, because when you do get one this close to season, you don't really want to go bomb through there, because when it comes time for opener, they're going to be gone. So I'll be doing some scouting far away in the truck, and then one of these mornings and evenings try and get out there and see where they're coming off and going to for the roost and stuff. And yeah, it'll be good.
It. It's going to happen here before we know it. I still don't know what I'm doing for opener. I don't know if I'm going to make it out for opening morning up here up north, or what my plan is yet. I might take my father-in-law out. He hasn't shot a turkey yet. We went out, I think it was 2 years ago. We went out and we came close. I think like 2 or 3 times, just never got it done. We had some really bad weather for the week that he drew for his gun tag, but weather's looking really nice. It's gonna be almost 70 this Saturday.
Bust out the shorts. If it wasn't for the ticks,
right.
If it wasn't for ticks, I'd be in shorts.
Well, they're thick and full now, which I kind of thought after we had our huge snowstorm that they would have died off. And no, they're the most resilient creatures ever.
Yeah, nasty things.
You got that, and then fishing opener is less than a month away now, and it's fun times, man.
Trout openers the Saturday before. Saturday before.
Next week, right?
Yep. Yeah. So with what is that? The 16th, 13th of April is trout opener here for Minnesota, and I don't think I'll probably get out just because I got a really busy hunting season. So I gotta.
Have you been down there at all? Have the water levels kind of got back to normal?
I would guess we had that late,
You had a lot of rain.
Yeah, well,
and snow.
So that helps. I think we had that late, 8-ish, depending on where you were, 8 inches of snow. And then, all last week it rained a bunch. So I'm assuming I haven't been down. When we were down, they were low. And so.
Yeah, you said you were army crawling just to be able to get a line in.
Oh, you had to. Otherwise, you'd see the notorious ripple away and then that was it. You're not going to catch them after that. So.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we have a really exciting episode for you guys. And like I said, local legend, and lucky to have him on the podcast. And without further ado, we'll kind of bring him in here. So Dan Eigen, he's also known as Walleye Dan. He's a passionate outdoorsman. He's the owner of Walleye Dan's Guide Service, based here in the Brainerd Lakes area of Minnesota. With decades of experience of hunting and fishing, Dan and his team and professional guides are dedicated to providing unforgettable outdoor experience for all their clients. Beyond guiding, Dan is deeply involved in charitable events such as Fishing the Classic for Camp Confidence and Walleye Dan's Fishing to End Hunger walleye tournament, showcasing his commitment to giving back to the community. here in the Brainerd Lakes area and throughout. And let's join him as he shares his love for the outdoors and teaches others how to appreciate nature's beauty. So without further ado, let's bring in Dan.
We really appreciate you coming on today. We just, again, can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day, but let's just dive right into it. So you've been a guide up in the Brainerd Lakes area for how long now?
Oh gosh, I want to say, let's say 35 years.
Wow. Okay.
35 years.
How did, just kind of going back to when you were a young guy, what kind of got you into, fishing, hunting and all that?
Well, I'd have to say it started with parents that were, they both grew up on farms and were outdoors people. And, I was just introduced to, I was holding honkers when I was 4 years old, by the nets. And, it's like,
yeah.
So it was that. And then, I had an older brother who was into it just like myself. And, we were just constantly, I grew up in Eden Prairie. So there was a little lake walking distance from us, a little round lake. And we were over there all the time, whether we were, fishing, trapping, hunting, back in Eden Prairie, we actually hunted back in the day, which seems crazy, but
I was gonna say it had to have been really good, because I look at all the metro hunting that goes on now, and it's just crazy the deer that come out of there.
Absolutely, yeah. I saw my biggest buck ever during the snowstorm of '91, the Halloween snowstorm.
Oh, really?
And I was bow hunting, back where they now have Bear Path Golf Course. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Times they are changing, huh?
Oh my gosh, unbelievable. But yeah, I left Eden Prairie after high school in 1986, and it was still the prairie. There were 13,000 people there. And then worked my way north. But yeah, just, outdoors has always been just who I am. And definitely. I just, even this morning, gosh, we live back in the woods here a little bit, but I see a beautiful sunrise, and it's like, I have to get out and go look at it, take a picture of it. And, or I see it 6 o'clock and I see just a little glimmer of light, and I know the turkeys are gobbling. So I got to get out and listen, it's just, that's how I'm wired.
For sure. Are you getting out on opener for turkeys?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm
fired up right
hunter.
now. Yeah.
And I've hunted them. I've hunted them a long time, we'll say. And so it's not so much me. It's calling for other people, and I've got a list of people that I'm calling for. It just kind of depends on how it works out and how the weather is and such. So
nice,
awesome.
Yeah.
No, we'll awesome. Definitely have to talk more about as we go on throughout the podcast here about turkey hunting.
Oh, for sure.
I'm a turkey nut. So
okay, I was just going to ask. Are you guys?
Yeah,
definitely.
If you're not a turkey nut, I think you're just a nut.
No, that's true. I mean, like for myself, I just got into turkey hunting a few years back, kind of through Evan and his family and stuff. So I've got the I don't know what you want to call it, not the urge, but just like I'm
bug now, man.
I got the bug. I was driving around yesterday down here looking for spots and ended up scoring a spot from a local farmer that's going to let me go out this spring. And I was sending Evan pictures and videos, and there was probably 6 or 7 toms just out strutting their stuff. So it's just like sitting there in the truck, just doing this, getting just ready, because it's a week from today. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I was honestly suspecting that we were going to be like what it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, where we had a couple of years of that, where hunting them in the snow for opening week. So, I didn't really fully know what to expect when we came into, it's going to be almost 70 degrees up here in Brainerd Baxter area on Saturday. So we're finally back into some nice weather, and the birds are definitely fired up.
Big time. Can't wait.
Oh yeah. So kind of going back to, when we started off with guiding and stuff. So how did you kind of, you said you moved up, kind of made your way north. How did you kind of get to that spot where you're like, I think I'm going to start guiding people?
Well, I was actually at the Quarterdeck Resort back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
working maintenance, even though I had no clue, as far as any kind of mechanical background or, yeah, sure, I could mow grass and weed whip, but I was Dan, the maintenance man back then at the Quarterdeck in the late '80s. And I just remember, I had fished Gull Lake as a kid because we'd come up as a family and stay at different resorts and stuff. But and going to Marv Kep's bait shop and seeing the guides and their fancy boats and trucks, I looked up to them like they were some type of god, and so working at the Quarterdeck, I just remember Mark Lee, who was probably the best to ever fish Gull Lake. Mark was big, tall, dark-haired guy, and he talked really slow. And I went, I'd run down to the dock every time he'd drop off customers at the Quarterdeck that he picked up, and I was quizzing him like, "Hey, how'd you do? Can I see him?" And I'm 20 years old or whatever, and I'm like, "Gosh, Mark, I was out, and fishing was sucked, and I couldn't catch him." And he goes, "Well, Dan, you might want to look a little deeper, So he'd give me these little, bits of wisdom. And so anyway, the time went by and I'm like, gosh, those guys are getting paid to fish. And I know how to fish and I know some spots. And, I had my dad's 16-foot Lund, 25 horse Evinrude. And so there it began. My very first trip was out of there in 1989 and remember it very vividly to this day. It was an old gentleman, Ed Skiles from Kansas. He and his wife, Georgia, were up staying at the Quarterdeck, and, I must have suckered him into a guide trip, right? And the wind was blowing out of the southeast, coming right into the Quarterdeck, 20 miles an hour, just, ripping. And it was early in the season. And I was kind of like, oh gosh, what do we do? I went over to Love Lake of all places, out of the wind. And I just remember, we tucked up against the shore and, where it was calm, and Ed was fishing. I had given him a Zara spook, and he's fishing a Zara spook, and I'm teaching him, how to walk the dog, and, second or third cast, it was because it was cold, and he let the whole rod and reel go.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And thankfully it was a Zara spook, so I went over and grabbed the lure and pulled the rod in.
Pulled it back.
Yeah. But caught one fish that day, and it was a northern about 20 whatever, 23 inches long. So that's where it began.
Fun. Do you remember what your first boat was? Like your first boat that you had that was your boat that you were guiding people on?
Yeah, well, the first boat that I had was not my boat. It was actually my dad's, and it was that boat. It was that 16-foot Lund with the Evinrude.
Nice.
And I was pulling it with a 1977 Chevy rusted out pickup. And I just remember pulling into the boat landing, across from Zorba's up on the Narrows there. And there must have been a corporate guide trip, and all the Nisswa guides were in there. And I just remembered the look that I got when I pulled in there. As they're hooked up to their fancy Rangers and Toughies and Warriors or whatever they had. And, I just, like I say, there's just some things you just don't forget. And it was just like, I'm a guide, so
Love it.
To this day, when any young person, says, hey, I want to be a guide, I'm just like, you know what, if that's your passion, go for it. And I just try to, I've gotten better at looking at those people and saying, hey, that's how I was one time, so you just, I don't want to be that other guy that's, looking and judging, even though we always do. So,
and not to get too far off topic, but I was just looking on your socials yesterday, and you were just down in Rosemont, weren't you? Talking to a bunch of kids.
I was a guy that I fished with a few years ago is affiliated with that organization, and a couple guys, and so they asked if I'd come down, and I'm like, sure. So it was pretty cool. Went down and dropped my dog off at my parents in Eden Prairie because my wife was out of town, and went down to Rosemount and did my little spiel, and I had sent photos down to one of the guys, and so he arranged the PowerPoint, which is awesome. And I had my notes, and so I'm like, okay, next slide. We go through the whole slideshow, and we get to the last one, and it's these photos that I'm like, kind of took me back a little bit, and then I put it together. One of the kids on the fishing team had fished with me a number of years ago in the Snow Bear and caught his first walleye.
Oh, sweet.
And I was just like, that's really cool. And I totally remember the trip too. He and his dad and grandpa, and then a couple other kids came up after and were like, we fished with you. And I'm like, kind of had to look at them a little bit. And then they showed me pictures, and I'm like, well, actually you fished with Bruce, one of our other guides. But
at this point, how many people do you think you've taken out guiding?
Oh gosh, Evan, I have no idea. I really don't.
That's awesome, though.
I mean, so many, and that's what makes it so awesome, And of all those thousands of people, it's like you can count on one hand how many of them were just ones that you just wouldn't like to fish with again. So.
That's awesome. That could probably be a whole separate podcast talking about interesting people that you've had guiding.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you're talking when you first started at your nickname was Dan the Man, the Maintenance Man. Where did Walleye Dan come into play?
Yeah, good question, Luke. There's a lot of people that are like, "Gosh, that guy is so arrogant. He named himself Walleye." Like, well, not so much, but so I was working. I did these resort jobs. I mean, we could go on and on. Where I hopped around after high school, coming up here to Brainerd. Started at Madden's, went to Quarterdeck. Mm-hmm. Then I was at the marina up at Causeway. It was Vintage Boatworks in Marina, and met my wife Shelly. Awesome. And her mom was the assistant city administrator, I think, at City of Baxter at the time. And she probably looked at me and said to Shelly, it's like, you got to get that loser a real job. So I got a job in the parks department at the City of Baxter.
Cool.
And the recreation director there at the time, Bud Reppinen, kind of a card, just a character of a human. And I had been out with him a week or two before, and we just pounded the walleyes out on Gull. And, he wasn't much of a fisherman, but, he caught them and we caught them, and it was just awesome. I recall it was November, really late in the year. And so we're back in the office, drinking coffee, city job, right?
Yep.
And Bud's like, hey, Dan, he goes, we need to set you up an email address or email account. And I looked at him and I'm like, well, what's that? And he goes, well, it's this or that. And I go, he goes, what do you want your name to be? I said, I don't know. And he looks at me, he goes, Walleye Dan. I said, fine.
Funny.
And so that's where it all began. Walleye Dan at hotmail.com was
Hotmail. Gotta love the old Hotmail accounts.
Oh, yeah. And then I just started signing my name on the fishing reports, Walleye Dan, and then it went. So,
not gonna lie, I've always been curious about the backstory on that. So that's kind of cool to learn that.
Yeah, I have to give credit to Bud Reppinen.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, and the rest is history, right?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Oh, that's awesome. Um, and then, obviously like we're kind of starting this podcast off now and kind of figuring out ways that we can intertwine not only like, I guess, our own like faith journeys and stuff, but the importance of just kind of, faith in the outdoors. So I guess, just kind of going off of that a little bit, how does, rolling right into that, how does kind of like, faith play a role, not only in your life, but, in relation to kind of your outdoor, adventures, whether it's hunting, fishing, camping, all that stuff?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess, I would say, the Lord is above all, right? I mean,
Hmm.
he's the king. He's my boss. Even though my other boss, like I say, is out of town, but the Lord God is is everything, it's
Hmm.
like, and, so I see things as, I mean, everywhere you look, I see him,
Hmm.
and like I say, whether it was the sunrise or, just the fish that we catch and the animals that we hunt and everything, that we see when we're out, I see that it's his design.
Mm-hmm.
And, so, and, it hasn't, I was going to say it hasn't always been that way. Of course, it has always been that way. But as I've gotten more mature and, just as um, my walk has gotten closer to him, and
Hmm.
um, it's just, it's that much more evident.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, it's just like I say, he's the boss.
Love it. So can you think of like any moments, as you were growing up as a kid or going into your, those beginning, younger years is when you're becoming a guide, or just kind of to where you're at now in life, like any of those defining moments of where, your faith was either tested, or like where you really just felt like, this was a crossroads where I hit, where I kind of you fully gave in to, that, Christ is your Lord and Savior. Is like there any moments like that where you just had like a defining moment where your faith was just, you just felt like, yeah, I just got to give in, and it's got to be all for the Lord?
You know what? And I've certainly been asked that before, and everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people that had that moment where they, just submitted, and I guess I remember, once I met my wife, Shelley. She at that time was going to Assemblies of God Church in Baxter, and growing up a Catholic, um, I was clueless, as far as just having a relationship with God, and but bottom line is, I the pastor did the altar call, and I guess I felt convicted, you say guilt or whatever it is. It's like, and no, I had never done that, so I went up to the altar and was prayed over, and but then you do that, you go along, and then you fall into sin, and then you're like, oh God, please just keep me from doing this, and sanctification, I guess. I'm 56 years old, and I've gone through a lot, including a diagnosis with multiple myeloma cancer where I thought I was going to be dead, and even after that, where you're like, that God gave you another lease on life. Bottom line is, um, he I know he's always been there. I'm listening to Christian music like
That's good.
99% of the time, and
Hmm.
I've got 102.7 on in the garage. So wherever I
Nice.
am, there he is,
Yeah.
and and I've got the Holy Spirit within me, and I know that we're at a time in this world, you guys, where it's almost like desperation,
People need
where
Jesus, man.
oh my gosh, it's unreal.
Yeah.
And you know what? For those that that don't believe, that don't believe that there is a rapture. It's like,
Mhm.
you better start reading and, getting ready, because it's getting close for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that, and that's such a great story, and just how much clarity there is, and but like at the same time though, like how gentle God is with just reaching out to us and calling to us, and where it's just those little things where He's always there in your back corner, no matter what. But just
Amen.
the little callings where you get grace, and just so that's awesome to hear. So that's good.
Yeah.
So I've got one more kind of burning question with that. So going in, since we're in this sector of like faith and stuff, and you've had, from what it looks like from all your Instagram stories and stuff like that, you've had the pleasure of traveling around the country doing some pretty cool stuff. If it's been down in the Bahamas, it looked like, or if it's been out west chasing turkeys or elk. Can you
Yes.
just think of a moment like when you've just been, like you said this morning, like you walked out, you saw a sunset, and you just felt captivated to take a picture or video? Like, have you had one moment where you've just been in awe of just like the sheer beauty of the moment, where you just, you could just feel God there with you, where it was just something just so beautiful?
You know what, Evan? I guess I feel that there is not necessarily one, definitive moment. Um, I've had so many,
That's
I
good.
mean, I've been on the mountains out in Idaho looking over Lake Cascade, and it's just like,
That's sweet.
that's awe. You're just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that is just amazing. Um, I mean, there's so many moments. I remember, back when we were filming the television show for Fleet Farm,
Oh, cool.
we were doing, we were, on a turkey hunt, and I just remember this big tom coming in from a long ways away, right? I mean, we heard him gobble. It seemed like a mile and a half, 2 miles away, and he finally came in, and he was coming through this grassy field. I don't even know what kind of vegetation it
Yeah.
was, but it was a really dewy morning, and he was coming through that grass, and the just parting the way, and the dew was coming off the weeds, and he left a really dark trail behind him as he was coming in, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it is, and the sun was just rising, the most beautiful moment, you know
Love
um
it.
so yeah, there's just been so many of those. But one thing I should mention is, obviously prayer is key. But back when we were filming that Fleet Farm show, um, you know, one of my there's Moose. He needs to go out again. Let me. Do you hear
That's
him?
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good.
Dad, let me out.
Yeah.
Moosey, don't you know we're doing a podcast?
What kind of pup is Moose?
Moose is a golden doodle.
Oh,
Golden
nice.
Doodle. Love it.
Yep. And he actually knows how to jump a rooster. So
There you go.
Well, I tell you what,
but
that's awesome.
so anyway, yeah, I just one of the highlights in my fishing career was when we were filming that show. Um, Al Linder and I were doing a smallmouth show over on Lake Mille Lacs,
Nice.
and I just remember driving over, and we got to about the McDonald's on the east side of Brainerd, and I said, Al,
Yep.
I'm just gonna say a prayer for for the day, and I just said, thank you, Lord, for this day and this opportunity, and I just asked for you to put us on some hungry fish. And it was just simple prayer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does he do? He puts us on a school of smallmouth bass that were 17 to 19 inches,
Footballs.
nonstop footballs. And
Oh,
then
fun.
and then I catch one of them that is 18 incher, and it gets T-boned by a muskie that's probably
Jeez.
50 pounds.
Yeah.
And we land it, No way. Get it all captured on film. It was a pretty miraculous moment, but
did that one get posted up for the Fleet Farm thing, or was that on Al's page or your page?
I'll have to go and find that. That one you can find if you just search Walleye Dan Muskie, or
I'm gonna make a note of that.
But it's also all those shows, those We Love It Outdoors shows. We did it for 3 years, and they're all on YouTube. And that one, I think, was the fall smallmouth consolidation, or I don't know what. But anyway,
well, that's awesome. And just kind of before we transition here and get more talking about just the outdoors and stuff, do you have any just wisdom that you want to spread onto us, and for any maybe younger viewers that are out there, for you just kind of led into it a little bit with prayer and just how that intersects with you being in the outdoors and just taking that time of solace that you get to enjoy in God's creation, of where just any wisdom you want to spread for just praying and stuff.
Yeah, well, just humility is kind of the key. And it's like, as a person ages, you just realize that you're not as cool as you think you are. And it's like, just when that happens, you get knocked down. And so I understand that. And kind of like the at that fishing team meeting the other night in Rosemount, I started by asking, all the kids, I said, who's the best fisherman in the room? And, as just kind of a setup, and like 5 of them raised their hands. And I'm just like, wrong answer, and I just was more or less, I just told them, I said, you know what? Fishing is the most humbling sport. Just when you think you're cool and you're great and you can catch the most fish, your next outing, you're going to get blanked. Yeah. And it's just, it just really, it's one of those things where, if you talk to a fisherman that says he's never been skunked, I'm pretty sure he's probably lying. So.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, humility is a big thing, and, and prayer, right? Just, God hears us, and, yeah.
That's good.
I love that. That's awesome.
Good. Sweet.
Yeah.
So I've been dying to ask, turkey hunting. So if you had to go through and pick, that's just coming up right now. So, I mean, we could talk about everything hunting and fishing, but I'm just curious to kind of grill you a little bit on turkey hunting. You said that you like to take out, multiple people a year, and yet you're an archery hunter only. And I feel like there's a rite of passage when you go from shooting too many with a gun, where you're like, I got to get something harder. And that's why I've got my recurve behind me now. I started shooting with the trad bow probably 3 or 4 years ago now. It where would you rank turkey hunting for yourself, amongst all the other outdoor adventures you could go on? Is that up there? And you said you're a turkey nut, so is that up there the top of your list, or?
Oh, absolutely. And I kind of roll with the seasons, right?
Sure.
I mean, I've already kind of gotten to the crappies, which was great that we had early ice out. Kind of got my fix there. Turkey season opens next Wednesday. From here on out, I get up early in the morning anyway, so I'll just be out listening. And I mean, it certainly ranks way up there. Yeah. And I first turkey hunted back in 1984. I want to say it was, down in Lake City. And and then just ever since, I've just had
been hooked.
Had the bug, and I just love it. Absolutely everything about it.
Sweet. Have you, through hunting them in the early 80s and stuff like that, have you seen a change in the population? Because we've talked about this in probably the last 3 or 4 podcasts. I feel like I've been chasing birds since probably the early 2000s, I would say, and I'd go with my dad when I was 6 or 7 in the late 90s. But do you do you feel like the population's doubled? Because I feel like it's gotten like birds have been crazy, especially up here in Brainerd Baxter. When we first moved up here like 7 years ago, I didn't think there was a turkey up here, and I was blown away by the numbers that were up here.
Yeah, and it's like when I first moved up here, we had walleyes and we had whitetails, and I was just like, if we just had turkeys. And that wasn't a prayer. I didn't ask God for that, but he heard me. And
yeah.
So yeah, the population has just exploded. I mean, they are everywhere up here, which is amazing. But Luke, I've heard, stories from people down in southeastern Minnesota where there's pockets where, kind of the opposite has happened.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like I was driving around yesterday, and you're kind of driving from spot to spot, and where I'm at, kind of over by Rochester, like there's obviously a lot of big chunks of hardwoods, but then there's just nothing but fields. So that's, I think, a lot where that pockets and populations come into play, where you're gonna, like yesterday, where that's that spot where I can talk to the farmer and can hunt now. I mean, I was sitting there for a couple minutes, and all of a sudden 3 toms come just strutting out over the top of the field out of the woods. Was driving around more, kind of just scouting for a couple other pieces we have closer to where Evan's family lives. And then came back to that same spot before I went home, and there was, I don't know, I sent Evan a video, probably
like
30 of them, and just huge, probably 6, 7 toms just strutting their stuff. And so, yeah, it is kind of interesting to see that, how the different pockets of turkeys are. And yeah, you can drive, on the way home was probably 15 minutes and I didn't see another turkey. So you definitely got to find those spots. But when you do, I mean, boy, especially early season right now, they are clumped up, and you can easily find those pockets of 30, even 50 turkeys out strutting around and doing their thing.
Well, it's funny, even here in Baxter and Brainerd, like, so we live just on the east side of Baxter, and like there's pockets of birds that live in town. I mean, like there's a good, like right behind Cub Foods, there's probably like a flock of 30 of them that are just like in like the little city limits right here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my little sister lives in Chanhassen, and she's got them out her backyard. My brother John lives in Meridian, Idaho, right in the middle. There's no woods anywhere around there, and he had a hen turkey in his yard. So they are hardy and they are everywhere. But it's like the people that say that turkeys are stupid. I think those people are stupid.
I swear though, turkeys are like the dumbest bird sometimes. It depends on where you get them, or they're the absolute hardest bird to kill. I mean, like they are, from their eyesight to their hearing, I mean, they can be extremely humbling to hunt.
And you know what, you guys, I would say that the hardest birds to hunt are the ones that are just on the outskirts of those, metropolitan areas. I'm thinking, even where I'm at up here in Lakeshore, I mean, you got a lot of activity around.
Yeah.
But it's like they get educated and they know every flippin' branch and
I'm sure
any kind of movement, and they're just like on you,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they've, it's a 3 or 4 year old Tom is so clued in. It's like, yeah, there's good luck. But then, like you say, you get times where it's like, you're like, he comes in on a flipping string. So it's just.
So what's your style of hunting for turkeys? Are you a go, we're just going to get after them? Or are you kind of sit back and waiting, sitting in a blind? Like, what's your style of turkey hunting?
You know what? Depends on who I'm with, and what time of season it is, and but the one I shot last year, really close to the house here, I was sitting in the blind, and and had birds gobbling, and it's like too much time went by, where I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to wait it out, even though you guys probably know as well as I do, if you get the attention of a bird and you have the patience to sit there all day, you're going to kill a bird probably every time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is, but so I picked up and left, and as I'm walking out with my black jacket on, because I was sitting in the blind.
Yep.
And I got my backpack over me, and I'm carrying my son's bow, and because normally I use a recurve, and I just wanted to kill one, so I grabbed his Matthews, and
I know the feeling.
I'm walking out, and I look and I see birds, through these saplings, and I'm like, oh, great, they were working their way in. And so I just froze, and I just stared them down, and they stared me down, and I just stayed still. And then they put their heads down and kind of started going about their business, and then would kind of look. And bottom line is I was able to get down, tuck behind this mound, and just shut up. And the first one that came out was a longbeard at about 20 yards, and I put the pin on him and I whacked him.
Nice.
So it's after having so many opportunities where they're, 5 steps from me, whether I'm in a blind or, sitting up against a tree, where I've either missed them or hit them and not killed them, or, something always goes wrong. This archery hunting.
Oh yeah.
To that moment where it's like, it's just, it was so easy. So,
well, you said it a little bit there. Tell me about just because I'm a feller trad guy too now, like tell me about your journey into trad.
Journey into what?
Journey into like trad, like traditional archery.
Oh, traditional.
With your rear curve.
Okay. Well, that's a new term to me, trad.
that's the new kids on the block term for shooting recurves.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that. Gosh, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not all about going out and killing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there are times where it's like, I want to go out and bag one, but it's just, when you shoot one, it's over, right?
It's over. That's right.
You don't get to go experience. I mean, I do because I call for a number of people, but it's like, so yeah, I just wanted more of a challenge. You shoot them with the shotgun and you're kind of like, gosh, this is too easy. So yeah. And I've shot bow my whole life and kind of dabbled in, traditional for many years. And
sure. And
then our kids' gym teacher up in Nisswa a number of years ago, Chad Holm, he was a bowier, and he made me some bows. And
he actually makes bows.
Yes. Well,
does he still make bows?
Chad had a heart attack.
Oh no.
And died here. Gosh, I don't know if it was 5 years ago or what it was, but just an awesome human being, and just so awesome. And I think about him all the time. And but anyway,
cool to have some pieces of his artwork of the bows you guys got.
Yes. Yep. My first one, I did not treat very well. And I think it was during the year where I was diagnosed with my cancer. And so I went from turkey season, right into fishing season, and then had my bow in the shed and it warped, and I was just so sad. But then my wife and kids got me a longbow and a recurve.
Nice.
For, I want to say it was Christmas or my birthday one year. So anyway, and it was just, I just love shooting a recurve or a longbow. It's just back to the basics, and it is so fun. And shot my bear with a recurve this year, and
awesome.
Had to finish it off with an 870, but I did. So yeah, and now it's kind of like, as you know, takes a lot of practice to put them in there. But I shot yesterday for the first time in a long time, and I only shot like 6 arrows, but 3 of them were right in there. So
it's cool. It's so cool. Like with I started shooting trad when I was a kid, and then got away from it. I shot one deer with my bow, got away from it, started shooting compound, because like you said, like you get to a point when you're shooting trad where you're just like, all right, I want to kill something. Or no, I shouldn't say kill something, but you want to harvest something, just because your odds are so stacked against you and you have shooting traditional. But it's so fun to shoot though. Like that's what like rekindled my relationship with bow hunting, was like I started shooting trad again. I was just like, I was shooting 100 arrows a day every day, and it was just like you just fall into it, and it's so instinctual, where I just feel like it's part of our DNA, where I fell in love with it. I'm just like, well, I bought a compound 2 years ago again, because it was like the same thing. I think I did 3 trips out to South Dakota. This will be my 9th year this year, going out the West River, South Dakota, for bow hunting. And after not shooting anything for 3 years, it's pretty humbling to I had to go buy a compound for that hunt. But like just shooting trads, so fun though, just to shoot around the backyard, stump shooting. And then just, like for me, I look at, for trad hunting, like that's like my new favorite thing is turkey hunting with a recurve. Like that is like so fun to me.
Yeah. I have not killed one with traditional equipment, but so yeah, I kind of go back and forth. But along those lines, it's like, my tip to really anyone, including yourself. And Luke, I don't know, do you shoot traditional?
Not yet. It's definitely some. Yeah, it's just another hobby I need to add on, right?
Right. But I had my last year deer hunting, once again, I hunt by the house here on some private property, and I hunted with my recurve, right, all the way through through the season. Opening of rifle Saturday night, I'm on stand with my recurve.
Nice.
And the biggest buck that I've seen in a long time comes in and smells my boot trail where I'd walked, earlier that morning down to check something out, and just made a short little trip down in there and back to my stand. But so here he comes, and I'm just like, the heart starts going and I'm ready. And he puts his nose down in my boot track and just locks up.
Oh boy.
And I'm just like, okay. And he turns around and, kind of does a, couple little hops and back, looking again, like something's not right here. So that I'm like, okay, there's a big buck in the woods, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I need to grab a compound. So I called my son. I said, Mac, can I use your Matthews? And he's like, sure. So then I'm out on stand and end up making some of the stupidest decisions. I shot 2 bucks last year, and I didn't find either one of them, and both of them were with a compound. So, so my bit of advice, and both of those I could have shot with my recurve.
Oh no. Sure.
So it's like, yeah, it's one of those things where if you're gonna traditional hunt, I say stick with it through thick and thin, and it's so much more rewarding when you do drill one.
Oh, for sure.
And just when you pull out that compound is when you should have had your recurve with you. So,
100%.
Anyway.
I've had lots of instances like that where it's just like, it just works out and you're like, why don't I have my recurve with me? I mean, like for me, it was a 2-year journey shooting a turkey with my recurve, where I had, I think 3 or 4 misses. Well, I I set the bar way too high for myself turkey hunting right away. I was like, all right, I'm going for headshots only. Bought the big decaps with my recurve, and I went 2 years swinging and missing, never
Yeah.
shooting one. And then finally, 2 years ago was my first one I shot with the recurve. But
Awesome.
yeah, no, it's fun, man. That's cool. I haven't heard it. Like I feel like that's a dying breed in itself, where you don't see too many guys. There is like a little niche community of people that shoot traditional, but it's not something you see everyday walkers for bow hunters that all they do is shoot traditionally. No, so it's cool to see somebody else that's doing it.
Yeah, I think you're going to probably see more and more of that. Because the popularity of archery has just, kind of skyrocketed, and it's that challenge, and it's one of those things where shooting a deer with a 30-06. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that is wrong, because I shot a deer with the rifle. I've shot him with slugs. I shot an elk, with the rifle here a few years ago. But it's like, there's nothing better than
for sure.
holding a stick and some arrows. So.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to turkeys here, do you have, if you had to pick a hunt, if you wanted to go chase Easterns like we have here in the Midwest, or because it looks like you've shot a couple Merriams, if you had to pick between the two, which hunt would you rather do?
I would say probably Easterns.
Okay.
They seem to be smarter.
What's your advice for us for killing Merriams? Because we're going out the Black Hills here in about 3 weeks, and we could use any advice that you have.
Oh gosh, I mean, I've shot a few of them,
Mm-hmm.
and shot them in South Dakota and Wyoming.
Okay.
Nice.
But yeah, and the thing that I just really love about that kind of country, like the Black Hills, where you're able to just run and gun them. Exactly. Yep. And just go and go and go. And I love that. But I would just hunt them the way you're used to hunting them.
Sure.
But, I mean, every hunt is totally different. So yeah, I mean, you might have to, you might have to circle around them and cut them off, because I've had times out there where, they're not responding to calls, and, they're just on the move. So if you can, cut and run and cut them off at the pass, you might have to do that. But, day in, day out, I think if you have that patience that it takes to be a turkey hunter, and you're going to kill one, if you know that there is one within earshot, and you just wait them out, they're going to come in. It's just the way it is. I've been busted before, and will be busted again, where it's that patience wears thin, and you get up and there they were coming in. So,
well, love it.
Yeah.
I'm this will be my 4th year out there doing it, but I'm 0 for 3, and I've had 2 years of running out there with the recurve where it's been unsuccessful. Last year was my first year with a gun, and we came close so many times and never got it done. So hopefully this year we can finally, I can end my saga with trying to kill a Merriam, but
yeah,
we'll see.
So can I ask you, is that over the counter out there?
Yeah, so
Black Hills.
Black Hills is over the counter. Statewide archery tag for South Dakota is over the counter. The only one that you would have to apply for is the prairie tag. That's a lottery, just because it gives you the option to go with the shotgun. But if you were to just get an over the counter archery tag, it's just, well, I should say it's different now, because with deer hunting now, they changed it as of last year, where it's a lottery now for actually getting. It used to be you're guaranteed to draw an archery tag every year, but it's kind of funny. I've been out there this will be my 9th year deer hunting out there. Going back 6 years ago, there's not a soul that hunted out there, and now that state is completely blown up for people numbers. I mean, we went out opening weekend last year for archery when it was open for non-residents, and I mean, we saw, I think, 40 or 50 trucks in one weekend. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, no, it's definitely that one's over the counter. It's I think similar to like Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin. I'm not sure about North Dakota, but they're all over the counter.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, fun hunt. So
Yeah.
transitioning just a little bit, talking more about kind of just for your love with the outdoors and just kind of life lessons and stuff you've learned. Like, can you just think of, some of the like the spiritual benefits that you get from, just or mental health benefits you get from just immersing yourself and, just being out in creation?
The benefits. Yeah, I mean, I guess um, I would have to say that it just it lowers that stress level,
Hmm.
right? I mean, to the max. I mean, that's how I find my peace, right? I mean, my job is in the outdoors guiding, and yes, that has its moments and can be stressful. Um, but when I have the opportunity to, you know, go out by myself with my bow and arrow and, go try to shoot a turkey, that's where it's just so freeing.
Yeah.
Um, or, the busy guide season is over and I'm going out west to elk hunt, or just even going out west to be along on an elk
Yeah.
hunt. I don't have to be the shooter. It's just that peace that you know will say surpasses all understanding, right? It's just you just have this, it's so freeing. And it's how fishing was for me before I
Yeah.
started guiding. You get on the water and whether you were mowing grass for your job or doing whatever, you get out there and it's just this release. So yeah, it's where I it's where I need to be.
Love it.
Definitely. And you do a lot, like you said earlier, like you went down to Rosemount and talked with the kids and stuff, and then you host the big fish and hunger walleye tournament. So, like where, with all that said, are those the type of things like, that's it's obviously like fishing, guiding and all that is your job. But what are those kind of those things like that really bring you that kind of the most joy or sense of
Mhm.
fulfillment with just being out there and getting other people into it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing. It's like I've done this long enough now where it's like, trying to pass that on is rewarding.
Hmm.
And, seeing people, seeing people catch their first walleye or, shoot their first turkey. Um, it's just, yeah, I mean, I've been there. I've done that, and it's just like I don't. I mean, I still like to see the bobber go down and set the
Yeah.
hook and catch a fish, but it's like it's not about me anymore. I mean, it's like, sure, you want to come into the dock and say you got a limit, but it's like it's so much bigger than that. And I still get caught up in that occasionally, where it's like one of the other guides comes in with the limit, you come in with 4, but it's like you need to look at it and say each day is a gift, and it's like try to just you know um take in that moment and make
Yeah.
it not so much about getting a limit as it might be just the little things. That person that you're out there guiding might be up on this vacation after having just a wicked trial that they've been going through, and you know they're just happy as can be just being in the boat with somebody. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
yeah. And then, Luke, you mentioned the fishing to end hunger tournament.
Yep.
Um, I just see that now as just, I mean, it's raised a lot of money over the years, and,
It's
they're
awesome.
feeding families you know, that need that. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, we need to, help where we can help, and, you know, just try to be good stewards, and
Hmm.
yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that that key piece you just hit on there is something that a lot of people, especially the people that aren't into the outdoors, whether it's fishing, hunting, that they kind of miss the purpose behind it. They see somebody with a grip and grin of holding a deer, and they just see a dead animal, but there's so much more that goes behind it, because with like the Pittman Robertson Act, like a portion of all license sales, gun sales, goes back to wildlife, goes back to habitat. And I think when we're able to become, like you said, stewards of the land, I think it's such a key piece that a lot of people forget about, even hunters and fishermen too, because it's like you get so focused in on that, killing that animal or catching that fish, but there's so much else that goes into it. It's like, okay, you get to harvest a deer. Well, that deer is going to feed my family for the next 6 months. Those fish that we just caught, we're going to have a great supper. We get to sit down together and just experience the catch, experience being together. And I think, that's also a huge piece. I think why Evan and I really wanted to kind of start this podcast too, is just being able to talk with people like you, Dan, and just kind of get everyone's sense of the greater purpose behind of what we love to do. We love to do it, but there's so much more that goes into it that I think a lot of people miss out on.
Oh, totally. You nailed it. And as you were, talking there, I was just thinking about the keeping the fish, right? It's like we're in the times now where everything is forward facing sonar, and it's enough to make you puke, but it's you have to address it. And the truth of the matter is, you're out there on a body of water, and it's like if you have the money to afford that kind of technology, and you have some know-how, and you're panning around, and you can follow this school of crappies around the lake, or you can follow that muskie around the lake until you catch the dang thing, which doesn't seem fair, but that mentality of getting my limit and bringing my limit home every night has got to go. I mean, it just has to. It's like we certainly are allowed to go out and certainly should go out and catch a meal of fish and feed the family, right? But you don't need to go out and catch a limit every day and feed everybody in the neighborhood,
Right.
I mean, sure, that's a nice thing, right? But it's just like our resources are not built to handle that kind of relentless pressure. I mean, just looking at the crappies out on Gull Lake, it's like they're going to get absolutely pounded. And it kind of makes me, bums me out a little bit. And I know that we need to, as fishing guides, need to do our job and explain to these people that these resources are, can't handle, what they're seeing these days.
Right.
As far as pressure. So it's tough. And I think no matter where you look in this crazy world, it just points again at, like what I said at the beginning. It's like the Lord is coming back, and you know what? It's going to happen. And, I mean, I was looking at a video on TikTok of, what's his face? Verlander. Justin Verlander?
Yep.
And he's talking about how baseball, the evolution of baseball. Now it's like everybody needs to throw the hardest they can throw and have the most spin, and they're blowing out arms. And it's just like everywhere you look, it's like everybody needs to be better and everything needs to be faster. And it's like we're just racing to what? So
it's crazy that it kind of brought in that analogy too. But like it's so interesting, I would say like maybe our generation where we've had that influx of, social media getting introduced, and just the fast paced nature of like today's times of, look, you said it a little bit about too, forward facing sonar, you got cellular cameras now, all these different tools that make things easy. Like I love to think about like my great grandfather who used to bow hunt and rifle hunt up in Orr, Minnesota, up by Pelican Lake. He'd take a train up there. It would take him 3 days to get up there and go hunt, and he'd hunt up there for 2 weeks. And just how simple life was back then, and looking at it now, and maybe you got to experience that a little bit too in your younger years of guiding, and just how you got to enjoy somebody's company. There wasn't this set expectation where you can enjoy somebody's fellowship, and now it's just everything's such in high demand of, like Luke, you said it, and Dan, you said it, of just we got to catch a limit, we got to shoot the biggest buck, whatever it might be. There's like, I feel like we're just losing that fellowship aspect of like what traditional deer camps used to be like, where it was just about getting together with family and friends and enjoying one another's time and company. And if you shot deer, if you caught fish, great. But I feel like we're kind of losing that now. And like you said too, like Jesus is coming at some point in time, and that's another thing. I think the world is just kind of blowing by their heads of not realizing like time's fleeting, and we only get one short amount of time here on earth. So
yeah, you're right. It's just, it's interesting, but we should also be excited that he is coming back.
That's right.
So,
yep, for sure.
Oh boy, what else, guys?
So yeah, I mean, we've this has been awesome. I mean, I guess kind of just going off of what we said a little bit, like just kind of ending out here, just kind of give us a little bit of just some memorable stories that you might have of just going through just when you first got started guiding, sitting in a boat with people, or if it's been out in the turkey woods. I mean, is there any stories you can think of where it's just been a memorable experience with family members, or just any stories in particular you think of that are just kind of related to what we've talked about today?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I had taken some notes, but of all the the people, one is just kind of really kind of standing out here. Um, I ended up taking Bud Grant turkey
cool.
hunting.
That's
turkey
awesome.
hunting in Camp
No
Ripley.
way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and it was one of those, where it was like, really nice guy, right?
Mhm.
And my parents had met his son Mike down in Eden Prairie. He coaches Eden Prairie football, and they had gotten me a book. Bud Grant, autobiography or whatever the heck it was. And it got, it was signed and this and that. Cool. And that's before I took him out. And so I knew by reading that book that he wasn't a believer. And, Bud Grant, right? It's like, lived that long, had that much success, but really seemed like he was the one that was in control of things, whether his team won or whether he, shot that deer or shot those ducks or this or that. And, so I have regrets to this day, but it's just like when I was sitting in the blind with him out at Camp Ripley turkey hunting, I don't know if it was because of who he was or if it was God telling me that, he's had many opportunities to hear the gospel, and he just isn't gonna take it. But bottom line is I did not share with him as I was in that turkey blind that morning. And going forward, at the age that I am, and, the life experiences that I've had and what I've read in the Bible and what I know to be true, it's like, if I had that moment again, I certainly would have given him my 2 cents, even though he's Bud Grant, right? Yeah. It's like, who cares? He's a human being just like you and I are, you guys. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you never know who is going to be that person that's going to talk to you, where it's going to sink in, or that you're going to talk to and it's going to sink into them about the truth. And, so yeah, it was just one of those times where, it's just like, gosh, I thought about it, just did not do it. And so anyway, that is, it's too late now. He's either in heaven or hell. And
Yeah.
I sure hope that he's in heaven. I just don't know his final moments, but the turkey hunt was interesting. I don't remember how old he was at the time, but he was old, and he brought his own chair, and and it's like, oh man, without really saying, hey, bud, get rid of that dang chair, because it was his lucky chair.
Yeah.
But that flipping chair was a squeaky bugger.
Squeaky.
And you can't be making noise in the turkey woods.
Right.
And sure, he might have been a little hard of hearing, but it's like every time he'd turn, it'd be, I mean, if it sounded like a yelp, that'd be one thing, but
yeah, there you go.
It was a squeaky chair, had birds come in behind us, and, didn't kill one that day, but his buddy Bob Lassard did shoot one, and it was classic because we were back in the little apartments on Camp Ripley there, and Bud is like, Bob had shot one, and Bud is just like me in this regard. He's like, well, let's hear the story. And Bob is just like, well, I shot one. And Bud's like, well, where did it come from? Did it come in gobbling or, and that was just awesome because that's the kind of stuff, that we want to hear, And he was just like, well, it just came in and I shot him. It's like, there's more to the story, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, that's cool that you shared that. I mean, like I can think of a handful of instances in my life like that where, we get tested to share God's word and don't speak up on it when we should. And, that's a great question. And it kind of was one of my last questions, and Luke can kind of run after me. But so kind of going off of a moment like that, have you had moments in life, it doesn't have to be involved with hunting or fishing, where you've had someone unexpectedly reach out to you and just ask you about God, or something that was profound where you felt maybe like it was God working through somebody speaking to you, or you just had that kind of, I don't want to say an epiphany moment, but a moment where, you just kind of just felt God talking with somebody, where it was just a unique experience?
Well, I have one that just happened this last fall, where we were out on gull and, really late season, jigging for walleyes and 40 to 50 feet of water. And I'd call him a friend, lives down the road. I met him way back in the day when he and his family came up to Quarterdeck when I was, Dan, the maintenance man. And he had taken a picture of me with this, 8-pounder, and had it framed for me and gave it to me, and, back in the day. But his name is Bill Warzika, and I was out fishing with Bill and another friend, Zach, that works at the Quarterdeck, and Bill had some health issues, where he's had some heart issues, and so we're out there, the three of us. And Bill is just, you could tell he's just hurting. And I'm like, Bill, we got to get you back. No. And I'm like, yeah. And, I look back to Zach, and he's looking at me like, yeah, what do we do here? Thinking he's going to have a heart attack. And so finally it was just kind of like, okay, Bill, we got to go. And he goes, yeah, we do. And it's like 4 o'clock, and, it was just coming into prime time where you knew we were going to catch him. I just had that feeling. And it's like, but we had to go, right? His health is more important than anything. So, Bill I think we'd caught one eel pout or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then Bill just starts to reel up, and all of a sudden his rod bends, and it's like, he's got a fish on there. He pulls it up and it's like a 20-inch walleye. And we're like, thank you, Lord. You know, it was like, how awesome is this? And, you know, reeled up, you know, threw it, had dinner for him. And, you know, just on my way back, I was just like, hey, Bill, you know, do you believe in God? You know, and it was just, oh, absolutely. And I had no idea. I've never talked to God, never talked to Bill about God before. And, you know, so just that moment, you know, everything was just kind of like, oh gosh, you know, I got to at least, if you don't believe in God and your health is the way it is, I need to at least talk to you. And, you know, it was just one of those moments where I just felt that I had to ask, and, you know, I was thankful that, you know, he did have a relationship, but so I don't know if that's what you were looking for and asking that question, but
that's good.
Yeah, that was one.
I think a cool piece with just going off of that too is the fact that you are able to, you know, whether it's yourself, Evan, or I, that those opportunities come so often. I think when you're out fishing or hunting with friends or family or even people you don't even know, that just that, you know, you're sitting in a boat with just the two of you. There's no one else around. You're sitting in a blind with just the two of you. You're up on a hillside in South Dakota, just the two of you or three of you, whatever. And I think like that's something that I've tried to work on too, as a man and stuff, is just being able to just kind of just dive in head first to your own faith and just trust that God's always going to have your back. And in those moments, you are almost kind of being a fisherman of men, right? You're not trying to like push it down someone's throat, but it's just like having that question that you just said. You're like, hey, do you believe in God? Yes, you know, and then that conversation can go 100 different ways. But I think it's just being able, you know, if it's someone that says, yeah, oh, absolutely, and then you guys can talk about your own faith journeys, or if it's someone that may say no, or I have questions, and then, you know, I think you're able to be that person in their life that maybe helps them out through something. And I think like you said a lot earlier too, is like when you're out with somebody, when you're guiding them, when you're calling for them for turkeys, you know, you don't know what in the heck they're going through. They could, you know, their dad could have just passed away, they're, you know, whatever, and that they're just rock bottom. Stuff's not going right. But I think that the opportunities that the outdoors gives us to connect with people is something, and I was trying to hit on it a little bit earlier too, but it's really something that that is something that a lot of people need to recognize more. And we're a community of people that want to do the same thing and want to continue to do the same thing. And I think a lot more people need to recognize that. And because it's like, you get so much back and forth on social media. It's like, oh, I want to shoot that deer. I want to shoot that deer. Where it's like, you know what? We're all doing the same thing. Let's come together and then, you know, work together. And I think, just like I said, the hunting and fishing and everything outside just connects people on a whole nother different level. And I think when you can intertwine that faith, I think you're just going to connect with people on exponentially such a greater level.
Absolutely, Luke. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you need to look at the big picture, and, you know, and not judge, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And boy, we can all be really good at that. In fact, we probably do it every day, but
for sure.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, like you say, everybody's on a different walk, and you need to slow down and just look at that and ask the Lord to, you know, help you through it and help you see it the way that it really is. And so, yeah, it's deep. But even going back to, you know, do you believe in God? Well, Satan believes in God, right? Satan knows who God is. So it's more, we need to certainly believe in God, but we need to have that relationship with him where, you know, we put our 100% faith in him, and know that other creature is, you know, just prowling and waiting. And, you know, constantly just ready, you know, but it's like, you know, he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world. So, and we know that, you know, in the end, the Lord wins. So, yeah.
Amen to that.
That's amen. That's so good. And, Luke, do you have any other burning questions?
No. I mean, I think that's a great, perfect spot.
And not to throw you on the spot, Dan, but we always close it out with the prayer. So, I mean, if you want to lead us in prayer, otherwise Luke and I certainly can.
Oh, I certainly will.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, dear Lord, you are awesome. And thank you for putting us three together this morning. And thank you for the people that this podcast and YouTube, whatever you want to say, segment is going to touch. And Holy Lord, you are about ready, I think. And we don't know the time or the hour, but it certainly seems close, God. So in these final days, we just ask you to, let us walk in your spirit and be bold and, help us to share our faith, which we've done here today. And God, just let us be excited for these final days as we keep a watchful eye out for you, God, and as we also go through life and, keep a watchful eye out for those turkeys and we just ask for your continued blessings and help us to just stay focused on you and stay in your word. And we just thank you for all that we have and for, continuing to provide for us, God. And we just thank you, Lord, in your name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Here we go.
Dan, thank you so much. This was a blessing to have you on and for taking time out of your day. We're excited to see all the stories that you got coming up here in the next couple months, and with fishing opener and with turkey hunting. We wish you the best of luck, and it's going to be a fun spring.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. And I appreciate what you're doing, and I'll pray for your business and, to be successful. And
thank you.
And we'll see each other down the road somewhere.
Love it. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you guys so much, and tune in to the next episode.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, you too. See ya. Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith in the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.